You want these?
I didn't talk about this in the other two classes, but you know when your test is on the chapter we're about to start?
Friday?
Never.
Next Monday.
7 days from now. That Monday?
Oh yeah, right on the, 1 week from right now, you'll be taking the test on this chapter.
I don't know if I like that
That's how
idea.
fast it is.
I like having to Monday. It like
That could
forces
either
you
be
to
a
study
really
over the
good thing or a
weekend.
really
I will. The good news is, if it's a boring Super Bowl, you have something to do that night.
I don't watch the Super Bowl.
Football confuses me.
Are you hurting my poor child?
Pick up on calling.
I know.
I'm not gonna talk anymore.
We're gonna talk the whole class right into you.
Oh my gosh, stop doing that.
Do you guys not appreciate my narration? Leave a comment if you do.
Stop.
Narration. I have a cold. I'm dying.
Do you want to start a cult with me?
Let's do it. Black Veil Brides.
Oh, I was saying the lyrics to
My
Bring
Chemical Romance.
the lyrics to Bring Me the Horizon's new songs mantra. Yeah, Bring Me the Horizon's new song mantra. And the first lyrics are, "Do you want to start a cult with me?"
Oh. I like that.
Yeah, me too. I love starting cults. Like, oh my god.
They're probably just like, what the heck is happening?
We're starting cults.
We're on crack.
With cults.
Oh my gosh, stop.
Crackle cults.
Carving one joy.
Don't say my name. I cannot play with you guys.
Carmen, you're having so much fun.
I spend all third period and fifth period doing that. So I hope I don't have to do that self.
What they do?
They're on my speed dial now.
Dun, dun, dun.
I think in the last 5 years, I've probably called security twice. Once there was, I had a fight in the classroom last year.
Oh,
First
fun.
time in 31 years I had a fight in the classroom. So that was once, and I'm sure there was another time. This year, in the first 3 weeks of the semester, I think I've called security 4 times.
What's been going on?
All because of first hour honors algebra 2.
Those horrible honors kids. Gotta look out for those honors.
Is he being sarcastic?
Chapter 10 is on A. Matrices.
The Matrix. Let's watch The Matrix and take a test on that. Can we watch The Matrix?
Matt Rice.
Can we please watch The Matrix? That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna watch The Matrix, and my mom's gonna ask me what I'm doing. I'm gonna say I'm studying for math.
Sitting on my mattress, sleeping, studying for the matrices test.
The Matrix. I said The Matrix in my phone
You
balls.
just cut off the first 3 minutes of this video. It's just you guys.
You guys don't like hearing me talk?
Oh my god.
I have the nicest talking voice. I'm trying.
Do stuff together. I said one line, and then all of a sudden, the talking goes on for like 3 minutes. Matrices is the topic of the chapter. Matrix, singular. Matrices is the plural. Okay. What is a matrix? A matrix is basically a set of numbers organized in rows and columns for different reasons. Just make something up. That's fine. The book defines a matrix as a rectangular array of numbers written within brackets. Okay? The dimensions of a matrix are important. Matrices are discussed in terms of rows, and rows come from the sides. And columns which come from the top. So in this case, how many rows do we have?
2.
We have 2 rows. How many columns do we have?
3.
3, which means that the dimensions of this matrix are
2 by 3.
3. And this is the way you'll see the dimensions written. Rows comes first, columns come second, all the time. Each number in a matrix is called an element of the matrix. In this case, how many elements are there in the matrix? There are 6, which, not coincidentally, is 2 times 3.
Wow.
So therefore, in a 7 by 6
Surprising
matrix, there would be 42 elements. You got it.
Hard math.
Oh my gosh.
Some matrices occasionally will look like this. What would be the dimensions of this matrix?
1 by 4.
1 by 4. Since there is only one row, this would typically be referred to as a row matrix. I know, getting deep here. We might have matrices that look like this. What would be the dimensions of this matrix? 3 by 1. Since there is only one column, here we go, typically be referred to as a column matrix. If you are not sure about the dimensions, you're like, okay, is that 3 by 1, 1 by 3, or whatever, draw arrows. Okay? Across, go across, go across, go down. The number of arrows across are your rows, the number of arrows down are your columns. Later on in the chapter, we will start to hear about something called a square matrix. I'm going to take a wild guess as to what a square matrix, the dimensions of a square matrix.
Square.
The number of
Rows is the same as the number of
would be the same as the number of columns. So an example of a square matrix might have dimensions
3 by 2.
In this case, this square matrix would be a 3 by 3. Can you give me the dimensions of another square matrix? 4 by 4, 17 by 17.
5 by
What
5.
about 1 by 1?
That's just one number,
Would that be a square matrix?
I guess.
Absolutely would. Yeah. As long as the number of rows is equal to the number of columns, it'll be a square matrix. We will not talk about this too much today, but we will later on in the unit. Okay? So next, the question is, why? Why matrices? Why do we care? How are we going to use them? So, let's go to the obvious direction that we would go with this. What is that called?
System of
A
equations.
system of equations. A system of equations would be typically 2 or more equations that use the same variables. If we are trying to solve a system of equations, what are we looking for? The x and y that make both equations true. We're looking for the x and the y that make both equations true. Okay. Chapter 9 talks about that a lot. You guys saw it a couple of years ago. But we're going to show you how to do it using matrices. And the problem is, when I show you how to do it using matrices, you're not going to want to do it using the other ways. But we're going to have to when we go back and do chapter 9. But you're going to use, whenever you have your calculator, you're going to want to use matrices. Anyway, here we go. The first thing we are going to do is we are going to write what is called an augmented matrix. And the way we are going to write the augmented matrix is we're going to, towards the right side, we're going to put a little dotted line like that. Over time, you'll probably draw the dotted line less and less, but it's kind of to show, you'll see in a second. And we're basically going to write each equation from left to right, but without the variables and without the equal sign. So in other words, we're just going to use coefficients and constants. So the first row is going to be 4, 3, and on the right side of the dotted line is 11. So the second row would be 3, -5, and 1. And so this is the way for this to say 4x plus 3y equals 11, 3x minus 5y equals 1. So it's important that they're in the same format. X is first, y second, etc. Okay so far? All right. So what if, instead of having an augmented matrix that looks like that, maybe we have an augmented matrix that looks like this. How about 1, 0, 4, 0, 1, -7? Would you like that augmented matrix or not like it, or it just doesn't matter? You would like it?
Yeah,
Because
What does it say?
x equals 4,
X
equals 4,
equals 4.
y equals
and-
-7.
That makes sense.
Ooh, I think I like that. Right? Because this is 4x plus 3y equals 11. So this would be 1x plus 0y, or just x, equals 4. So we like this. So if we could manipulate this to be kind of like this, that would be a good thing, right? And luckily, our book spends a lot of time talking about how to do just that. Here they talk about augmented matrices, then they come over here, and they talk about row operations on a matrix and all this stuff down here at the bottom that you can do. And then on the next page, they start to talk about applying row operations. And then at the bottom, they talk about row echelon form of a matrix. And different. No, don't worry. Don't push it fast. Do you think I'm going to get to the important parts for you, the stuff that you need to know? Okay. Yeah. So have confidence. Okay. So down here, they have all this. Here's what you do. Here's what you need to do. Da 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 da. And they come over here and they show you some examples. They come down here and then they talk about Gaussian elimination with back substitution.
I remember this dude.
Oh, wow.
And then they come down and they talk about the different steps there, and then they come over here and talk about Gaussian elimination with back substitution with 2 variables, and they show you all these different ways to do it. And then they talk about it with 3 variables, and they come over and they show you all this easy stuff here, which is simple, he says sarcastically. And they keep going, and then they talk about Gauss-Jordan elimination, and so we got, here are the steps for that, so, more methods and how to do it, and all this stuff. And then they come over here and they show you this problem, and this is great stuff, and they talk about 4 variables. And look at this problem over here. And it just keeps going and going and going and going. So, we have 2 options. Option number 1,
Quit
let's
math.
go through all those 10, 13, 15 pages and go through Gauss-Jordan elimination and back substitution and reduced row echelon form and all that stuff. Or
Quit math.
we can ask our calculator to do it for us.
calculator, please.
So whichever way you want, I'm good with. How many people would go for option 1, which is the Gauss-Jordan elimination and all that stuff? And how many people would go for option 2, which is ask our calculator to do it for us? Okay?
Technology.
I'm tired. So, all right, so we'll go calculate. be able to
Darn.
do this, you will need,
A calculator? Whoa.
so if you don't have a calculator, guess what you should do?
Calculator.
That's some new line stuff. You gotta use a calculator to do calculator problems.
It's crazy.
It's quite absurd that you actually need a calculator for these.
Oh my god.
I'm back.
Bag bitches.
So,
Sorry.
They can't hear me.
Yes, they
Bye.
I watched one of these videos and you guys were like whispering and I could hear you
so here we go.
clearly. That's why when I came back, I was like, I'm never speaking again. I can pick up every word that I say.
Were we saying anything interesting?
You were talking about like.
I present to you
We were talking about
a calculator.
I'm sorry, what?
Step 1, turn it on.
Only us.
On. Okay, we're off to a good
Oh
start.
boy.
Now,
Yeah,
may
mine
see
is dead.
down here,
I can't find my charger.
above the x to the negative first button, in blue it says,
Matrix.
I have a feeling we're going to use that today.
Whoa.
So, I'm going to go second matrix,
That's an absurd theory, sir.
and I get a page that looks something like that. Now, yours may not have this here, it may have more stuff down here. Either way, it's fine. Don't worry about it at all. As long as it says A, B, C, D, da, da, and across it says names, math, edit, you're in the right spot. Okay? So, what we want to do is we're going to create our first matrix. To do that, we're going to go over to edit. So let's slide over to edit. And I typically try to put as many matrices as I can as matrix A. And so you can always, if a matrix is in there, that's fine, you just overwrite it. So for me, I'm just going to hit edit on my matrix and edit A.
Whoa.
And I get a matrix.
I don't.
Now,
What?
huh?
Calculator?
Okay, yep, that's fine.
Okay.
If you have nothing here, and it says up here like 1 by 1, that's cool. So whichever, we're fine. We're going to put in the dimensions of our matrix. Now here is the matrix that we're going to put in. So what are the dimensions of this matrix?
4, 3, 11, 3, 5.
2 by 3. So 2, enter, 3, enter, and you see that it creates a matrix there for us. And all we're going to do now is type in the numbers. If you hit enter every time, it'll just slide it to the right. So 4, enter, 3, 11,
Oh wait, no, -5.
3, -5, 1. Now,
Two columns.
a couple of very important things here. First thing, I typed in the 1, but I have not yet hit enter. Because, no. You want to. My point is, I haven't hit enter, and you'll see that it's still what it was before. If you don't hit enter here, you will not get that number in that last spot. So you must hit enter. You can't just type in the number and say, okay, I'm done. You have to hit the enter to get it in. Okay? That's number 1. That's a place where people make mistakes. Number 2, we're now going to get out of this because we're going to do some operations on it. We're going to let the calculator do it, but we have to get out of it. You cannot stay here and then hit the next button that you want to use because it'll start putting bizarre things into that spot on your matrix. So you want to get out of this. You do not get out of this by hitting the clear button. You must go to quit. So you have to go second quit to get out of this, and it'll send you back to the main screen. Our matrix is in, our matrix is saved, it's all good, but we have to get back to here before we do anything. Questions there? Make sure you hit enter, and then quit to get out. All right, so now we're going to go back to matrix. And this time we're going to do, and you'll notice that now up here you should have a 2 by 3. Okay? And that's the matrix that you just entered. Our 2 by 3 matrix is in, and it is this. Okay? But now we're going to go to math, because we're going to have it do some work. So I'm going to slide over to math, and I'm going to go all the way down. I'm actually going to hit the up arrow to go from the bottom up, and I'm going to go up to B. B is RREF. It stands for Reduced Row Echelon Form. Irrelevant. It's in your book. I brought up the phrase a couple of minutes ago. But we want to go to B every time we want to go to reduced row echelon form. If you look here, these are all those things that they were talking about in the book. Row swap and row addition and multiplying rows and multiplying and adding rows. And that's all of that stuff about trying to manipulate this to become this. This is what you would use for Gaussian elimination and all that stuff. We have decided that we just want the calculator to do it all, and that's perfect. So we're going to go to reduced row echelon form. So I'm going to hit enter on reduced row echelon form. And it's basically saying reduced row echelon form of what?
A.
Well, I want it to be matrix A, so I've got to tell it. So here's how we do it. We go back to matrix. We go back to matrix. And this time we just want names. So here we're just going to hit enter, names, and it'll put reduced row echelon form of A. When we hit enter, yes it is. It is a lot of steps. But we're done. Right? What does this say? Right? Remember what we saw up here.
Y equals 1.
X equals 2, y equals 1, and we're done. Calculator did a very nice job for us. So all of that stuff that we could have learned about the Gauss-Jordan elimination and Gaussian elimination with back substitution and all that stuff, we just said, calculator, do it for us. And it said, okay, here you go. X equals 2, y equals 1. If you want to make sure that you didn't make any mistakes, plug it in. In this case, x is 2, y is 1. It's an easy plug-in. X is 2, y is 1. 8 plus 3 is 11. X is 2, minus y is 1. 6 minus 5 is 1. We're good. Now, on a test or something like that, is it worth the extra 10 seconds to plug it in and make sure? I would. That way, you walk out the door and you know whether you got the problem right or wrong. Okay? Questions there?
No.
Okay. Here comes the next one. What's different on this one?
Oh, it's a Z. Oh.
It's supposed to be a Z. No, that's minus. Now, let's make sure I got this right. Okay. So, you said that the difference is that we now
Have 3 equations.
have 3 equations. We also now
3 variables.
have 3 variables. Okay?
Oh, there's 3 equations.
You'll learn this. We'll talk about it a lot more when we go back to chapter 9. But in order to get a solution, you have to have the same number of equations
That's variables.
as you have variables. So when we had 2 variables, we needed we needed 2 equations. Now we have 3 variables, we need 3 equations. And we have 3 equations, so this is good. So, yep.
Will the variables always be in that order, or will it be like y before x and then you have to like flip them around?
Good question. The answer to that is, I don't know how it's going to be, but for us to put it into an augmented matrix, it has to be the same in all 3.
So it doesn't matter what order, as long as they're all the same.
Right. Like if we went Z, X, Y for all of them, that would be fine. We just have to know that the first one is Z, the second one is X, the third one is Y. Because of that, we will typically go in alphabetical order, just that way there's no concern about now, which one is it? You know, we always know it's alphabetical. So you're pretty much not going to see it not in alphabetical order. But if for some reason you do, just change it. Okay? Set up your augmented matrix. I would probably just plug it right into the calculator. Again, I like to use A, so I'll probably just go back to A because I don't want to just start getting, 7, 8, 9, 10 matrices on my calculator. There's no need for that. So I'm going to go edit. And tell me about this augmented matrix. 3 by 4, right? It's going to be 3 rows with 4 columns. Be careful when you put it in. A mistake that people make quite often are negative signs. If you miss a negative sign, instead of getting like x equals 2 and y equals 1, you'll get things like x equals 17/28 and y equals 31/22. It happens a lot. Yep. Don't worry about what's on the calculator that you see right now because that's just from the last problem. But the nice thing is that if you use A, that's better. If you use A, if you just hit enter here, it'll have the same REF of matrix A. You don't have to go back in and save you a little bit of work. That's another reason I like to use A all the time because it's still there on the calculator. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, we don't listen to we have.
Did you get stuff that you like?
No.
No, it's ugly?
Yeah.
So when I do it, here's what I get.
Yep. Yeah.
Are you happy with that?
No.
Why not?
Decimals.
Decimals. Holy cow, think about that. Think about that. Walk yourself back to August.
Fractions.
And remember in August what you said about fractions? I hate fractions. I'd much rather use decimals. And here we are in January and you're going, I don't like the decimals. I'd rather have fractions. So, why don't we change it to fractions? It'll be easier to see. Watch this, ready? Ready? Math. Math to fraction. Number 1 right there is to fraction. Enter. Isn't that better?
That's clean.
Yes.
I knew it.
Math. And then the number 1 thing in math is to fraction. Right. Then you messed it up. Messed it up.
What did I do?
You feel like giving me my notifications phone?
What?
Okay.
I want to check my
So,
notifications because it's just
now do you like what's up
passivity.
there? Jake says no. Why not, Jake? Has nothing to do with that.
Because there's zeros.
Hang on, I didn't hear you.
Variables per row.
Yeah, look at this.
Yeah.
What does this first row say?
X
X
minus
Plus,
5
plus, right?
thirds
X plus 5/3
plus 5/3
Z
Z.
equals 0.
Yeah, I don't like that. What does the second one say?
Y minus 4/3 Z equals 0.
Yeah, it is. What does the third one say?
Z equals 1.
0 equals 1.
Yeah, the last one is actually the most important one. I don't like the first one, I don't like the second one, but the third one is the most important one because it says what?
0 equals 1.
It says 0 equals 1. That's what it says.
So does that mean those two zeros are equal to 1?
Well, it says 0x plus 0y plus 0z. Well, what is 0x plus 0y plus 0z? 0.
It's definitely not 1.
So it says 0 equals 1. Tell me about that.
That's not.
That's not true. I agree with that statement. Because it's not true, what does it mean?
That this is not.
That this is not solvable. You're absolutely right. This problem right here, because of this statement right here, is a no solution. This system of equations, it doesn't matter how many x's and y's and z's you try, you will never find an x, y, z combination that will make all three of these equations work. It is impossible.
How would you solve, like, what would you
I'm
do
gonna-
if the bottom one actually?
Give me a second. Good question. So, do we like this problem or not like this problem?
I like this problem.
I mean,
I mean, my answer is the same as Jake's is, which is, I like it because I
We're done.
don't have to do anything. No solution, done.
But you just did all that work for it to be no solution.
Yeah. But I would have had to do that much work if there was a solution too, right? So it's not any more difficult.
But then at least you get something.
Fair enough. Huh? Sorry, I totally forgot, so
It's okay.
you just gotta yell at me like you do. All right, next problem. Yep. Well, the answer was no solution.
Yeah.
So that's it, done. Okay, here's the next one. Sorry, I'll try to make it grow. Try to make it bigger a little bit.
Wait, I'm confused.
Is that better? System of equations up at the top. So what's your first row going to be?
1 plus 0 plus 1.
Okay, the first row of your matrix is going to be what? 1, 0, 1, 3. There is no y. So if there is no y, you still have to put something in. Obviously, there are no y's. So